Hello, and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including The Lion King, which we'll be talking about today. I'm your host, Alex Bonilla, and today I'm joined by Sam Quattro.
Hello.
Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
Beatriz Mourad.
Hi.
And Sarah Potter.
Hello.
Today, we are discussing the film from the 1990s, The Lion King, and due to the fact that Disney is releasing a remake version later this year, or in next month, rather. Also, today's Father's Day on the day we're recording, and so we figured Lion King is a decently related film to that. So, yeah, we'll be talking about this movie. You can find more about our podcast at overlyanimated.com, where we've discussed a wide variety of animated films in the past. You can also subscribe to our films feed on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes. You can find us on YouTube. Wherever you listen to us, we appreciate any ratings and reviews you want to leave us. But yeah, The Lion King is an animated movie that many childhoods have been built upon. And I'm going to guess that we have a wide variety of experiences here with this movie. So I think we'll get started with just what is your experience with The Lion King? Like, how long ago do you think you first watched it? What connection do you have to it now? Let's go to Sam first. What are your general feelings about The Lion King growing up?
So The Lion King was my favorite movie growing up. I loved it. So when I was a kid, we didn't have the actual tape of The Lion King. Our tape of The Lion King was recorded off of a broadcast that ABC did of it in 1996. Ooh. So we had to fast forward through all the Space Jam commercials and whatnot. Anyway, I would watch The Lion King all the time. I had a bunch of Lion King toys. I'd reenact the movie with my toys. I would make my friends play Lion King with me, where we would throw each other off of hills, like Scar throws Mufasa. Yeah, it was dark, but I love Lion King so much, and honestly, I think they're the reason why that movie is the reason why lions are my favorite animal, even though that lions don't actually look like that. But now we're getting the new Lion King, which lions actually look like. But yeah, I love Lion King, and watching it as an adult, kind of it's more complicated than, oh, lions look so cool. I really love their designs and stuff. It's more there's a lot of deep problems happening in this movie, which we'll get into. Mm-hmm. But growing up, it was my favorite movie, favorite Disney movie that's been usurped. But I still have a love in my heart for The Lion King.
All right. So it sounds very, very nostalgic for you. Michelle, what was your experience growing up with Lion King?
Lion King was not my favorite movie, but it was my sister's favorite movie. So she had all the shirts with Simba on them, and the comforter, matching pillowcases, comforter, and sheet sets growing up. I was more of an Aladdin person, so I don't know. But my mom did tell me that we watched it in theaters as a family. So I was 2, and I really didn't like loud noises, and so I started crying pretty early on in the movie, so my mom had to sit in the hallway with me for most of the movie, so she didn't actually watch it until it came out on VHS months later. But this is definitely a classic. I mean, me and my sister watched it a lot when my parents would go out on date nights and stuff, so I remember all the dialogue and all the music really well. And it's been at least maybe 7 years since I've seen it last. I watched it last night with Sam, and I was super surprised by how well a lot of the animation and the emotional moments hold up after 20 plus years. It really is a classic. It is not perfect, but there are a lot of things to take note from it in terms of how do you make a really captivating, well done animated movie, or movie period, even, honestly.
All right. And we'll definitely get deeper into what this movie does right, and maybe some things it does wrong a little bit later. But Beatrice, what relationship did you have to The Lion King as a child?
I mean, as a child, I think it was this and Mulan were like my movies. Like, you know how like you can really tell the generation of like how old someone is based on like what Disney movie they love. Like, and I like this was like even though I love Mulan, like this was the like my first real like huge impression of like Disney. And I remember having like the VHS of like the karaoke of Disney karaoke. You would just have like you would have all these movies and their songs and like, oh man, like I loved it. I loved Lion King. So, and I hadn't seen it in forever. So I was a little worried when rewatching it because I thought, oh, like but I know the story so well. It's so ingrained into my psyche. Like I know all the beats. I know everything. It's so familiar to me. I wasn't sure if it would have the same magic. And on one end, it did because it was still able to suck me in, and I was still in awe. I still think that The Circle of Life is possibly like one of the, if not the greatest opening sequence of any movie, period. But also watching it now, because I haven't seen it since I was a kid, because there's a like basically once we moved from like VHS to DVD, I didn't rewatch it in DVD, I guess. But man, there are some problems with this movie, and it breaks my heart because I just, you know, I heard like I would see memes about it. I would see people make like side comments about it online, being like, "Oh, like this." I won't go into it because we'll talk about it later. And then I just remember thinking like, "Oh dear God!" Like I knew they were right, but now seeing it being played out before me, like it really dampened my love for this movie. It really, like, it didn't damper it. I still have this kind of awe for it and this just like kind of familial bond with it. But at the same time, it's like now become very much a familial bond where it's like, oh, it's like that one member of the family where you know that they have certain issues and you just are like, this is exhausting. So now it's become even more familial, I guess, in a way.
All right. I'm really interested to get in, like, to hear what you guys think are like the problems with this movie, because that there's like different options, and I'm not sure if they're all going to be the same. But let's go to Sarah. How did you feel about this movie growing up?
I like this movie a lot. I think like everyone, like it's a great movie. I loved all the Disney movies, and I loved this movie enough to have a bunch of the songs memorized by the time I was like 12 or whatever, like early, like before I was even like preteen. I like had most of these songs memorized because I love this movie. But I think as I grew up, I realized like the obvious problematic things. Like I realized, or not problematic, but I realized the obvious like things like that. Scar is holding a Nazi rally and stuff like that. Like as I grew up, but I didn't catch. True. I think a lot of the like subtler things that are wrong in this movie until I rewatched it recently, and it was just like, oh, this movie has a lot of issues. And for me at least, I can look past a lot of them because Hamlet itself is really messed up. It's really like Shakespeare is not known for writing stuff that's like, I think in a lot of ways good. Like I don't think a lot of stuff that he wrote back then would be okay today if it was written today, is what I'm trying to say. But it still is shocking that the world kind of loves this movie, and it has a lot of stuff in it that is not okay. Like a lot of the movie, like I think a lot of stuff with these is that the movie doesn't dig into it. But if you have even like two brain cells to rub together, you're like, oh, what's going on right now on screen? And I'm sure we're going to get into it, but I still love this movie, and it's still beautiful, and the songs are really fun. And I think it's in my opinion, it's the epitome of a Disney musical. Like, I don't think any movie they've made since or before this one is any like better as a musical. It's just so good.
Yeah, I do think it's like this really. Like a lot of people say that I'm going to make a Star Wars reference, and it's how many minutes in, but they say that the music in Star Wars is the oxygen of the movie, and it's very much the same here, where if you take the music away from this movie, it's not going to work, or it's not going to have the same capacity. The music is very much what gives it life, what gives it the space to be what it is, and it's just. I mean, honestly, the music in this is just. Like it's one of the greatest scores of all time. It's one of the greatest soundtracks. It's incredible.
I'm not trying to like derail the conversation, but like to piggyback off of what Sarah just said, that's really interesting because last night when I was rewatching it, I was feeling, wow, how did this ever work as a musical? Because all the music just seems so separate from each other.
Yeah.
And not to say that the music isn't important because, you know, it's like one of the centerpieces of the movie, but it's like, how did they make like a 2-act musical out of this?
The way, what I mean by how like it's the biggest musical thing ever is that like the songs really have these set pieces, like they're all set pieces. They feel like a musical. Like the Circle of Life, it like whenever there's a song, it gets less realistic. It gets more absurd. Like when Simba's singing about being king, like all the animals start marching in line with him, and there's like all these wacky colors in the background, and like every song is like that, and that's a really musical thing to do, and it just heavily leans into when characters are singing, anything can happen on screen.
Oh yeah. I get that. It's just like maybe I just like the music to
no. I get what you're saying.
Better.
I'm saying that I wasn't purely talking about music. That's what I'm trying to say. Like I'm talking about the full experience. That's what I mean. Like no other Disney movie like has the whole action change when the music happens. Like Pocahontas kind of does, but not to this extent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. And piggybacking off the music, like my personal experience with this is, I think I'm a little younger than all of you guys. So like, this wasn't a childhood movie for me. This is like Lion King's something I probably watched a little bit later in life when I was already like 10 years old. But the music is something that's always like been around me. Like I've probably listened to Circle of Life and Can You Feel the Love Tonight like dozens of times in my life, and Be Prepared recently has been a big thing for me. But like it had probably been like 5 years or so since I'd last watched The Lion King up to this week, and like I'd always been telling myself, well, I should probably rewatch this because this is like an important movie-ish, and I barely remember it. So so now we are all here today to after having rewatched it. And it's definitely an interesting experience. I definitely want to hear your guys' takes on like a couple of you have mentioned problems with the sequence, but we'll try starting at least a little bit positive. Like, what is your favorite part of Lion King after having rewatched it recently, or like what stood out to you the most? Beatriz, we'll start with you here.
What stood out to me the most?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to. I mean, okay, like, are we going? Can we get into it?
Sure. If you want to go to the problems first, that's fine too. Okay, let's go there.
Like,
Let's go there.
like in terms of what stood out the most, that's like at least in this rewatch, like that's what it was. That's what.
Okay. Let's go there. Let's go there. So lay out your grievances.
All right. Let's just start with one obvious thing, which is the disparity between the two siblings. So Mufasa and Scar. Scar is very much like they're undertone. Like one, he's not the apex of masculinity as Mufasa is presented to be, and he is just, even though like I love Scar as a villain in terms of like whenever like Jeremy Irons is incredible in his performance in this. Like the way that he delivers some lines, like when he just says like kill him when Simba goes running off and the hyenas chase after him, like it's so well delivered. He's so menacing. But at the same time, it's like, all right, so clearly he's effeminate. Clearly he's darker color scheme than Mufasa. Like visually, there are cues that are being told of like Zazu even says at one point, like, there's always one or two in every family. And I'm like, excuse me, what are you trying to say? And it's like, there's just a lot of, and it's just the way it's being portrayed in that sense. It made me feel so uncomfortable. It made me it was so icky and racist and homophobic. And I was just like, oh no, this is like a lot. And then from there, it just kind of kept sprawling in because you have this image, right, of an invasion. It's the hyenas have invaded Pride Rock. And it's like, what in our current in our current state of the world is the constant thing that Americans are being told to be scared of: an invasion of immigrants, what are white people always scared of? An invasion of people of different backgrounds, of different colors. That is what they're scared of. That is why they move when people move to one place. People of a certain privilege move out because they're like, no, we don't want there to be some intermingling. And it's just, that's what this movie is. That's what it is. It's the fear of having an invasion of sorts. And it's the hyenas. They're loud. They're different. They're darker. It's like, okay, then I get it. They're being it's just the entire underlying message of Lion King is not good.
No.
And at all. There's nothing and there's no other way to read it. And it's crazy because, for instance, visually, you have Scar being very much like in terms of just the entire sequence of Be Prepared, it's very Nazi-esque and all this stuff. But then it's but the very values that are being portrayed to us undercurrent, in the undercurrent, subtly, that are being portrayed to us is that, the lighter skinned, the masculine, the apex of whatever, it's very much the Nazi ideology in a weird way. Whereas, so the one that they're portraying as more it's just so strange. And I just don't like it. And it's just I basically what I learned is I should just listen to the soundtrack of Lion King is basically what I learned.
The best part.
Because it's so, oh God, it was so overt. And that's what stood out to me, was just how obvious it was. And I was a child when it first came out. So I don't know what was the critical discussion that was happening when the movie came out. But I mean, dang. Look, Scar deserved to be the best uncle to Simba, and they didn't give him that, and I find that just rude, is what I'm saying.
But and even jumping off that, Beatriz, you talked about how there's this undertext of black people in charge is bad, white people in charge is good, but it even goes beyond that because it's there's this undertone of socialism bad, of the middle class getting more is bad, because when the hyenas take over, there's this thing of there's not enough food to give everybody food. That's what it was.
Pride Rock became uninhabitable once the desegregation happened.
And here's the thing, what's crazy, it's wait, but the lions are refusing to hunt, but it's is it because there's no I don't know.
Yeah, no. The thing is that
there, it's weird.
No. What's happening is it's not explicitly said, but what's happening is it's not that there's not enough food for everybody. What's happening is the lions are just not giving food to people. They've decided that they'd rather be they'd rather be the rich people in charge than have anybody else be in charge, than have the entire place be livable.
I mean, what I understood from that was it's not that I understood was more because it's kind of it's weird because they mix things up. So it's not that clear cut. Because here's the thing. It's you have the hyenas come in. So you have, so now you're having the quote unquote infiltration or whatever. But now you have all these people come in. You have more desegregation of the animals. But then it's so you go okay, so we've challenged the social order of things. We made everyone but then it's did we make everyone equal? Because I don't think the antelopes can now, you know what I mean? So it's not socialism what they're doing. So I don't agree necessarily with that. I just, because it's it would make more sense if it's so the hyenas are eating everything, so then it outdoes the balance of things and whatever. Maybe that's what happened. I wouldn't go that far, but I would still say it's so unclear. There is no clear cut because it's different messages from both sides that they're mixing together, and it's just not. It's uncomfortable to watch because you don't know what they're trying to say.
I think okay. So I think if we're gonna go with the whole Nazi thing, I think that's probably the best, because I think the desegregation is a thing, but then also the fact that Scar is not the true leader is also an issue. Scar could never lead them to victory because he's not the true king. There's only one true king, and that's Simba.
Right.
And one thing that I think's hilarious is only the females hunt. Nala's amazing, but like she could be king. Like only Simba, because it's his birthright. And I feel like the birthright thing's like the other half of that. There's this circle of life. Everyone has their place, which is really messed up. And some people really get the short end of that stick. Obviously, the hyenas for one. But to disrupt the order disrupts the balance of nature. Like that's the deeper implication. And I think that's what's really the issue here, because for Simba's whole journey to be like, you have to go home because it is your duty to be king. Nobody else can. It's your birthright. And the world will just be awful if you don't own up to this. Like that's a crazy message, but it feels very much in line with Nazi ideology. So I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, and it's crazy because they're doing that Nazi ideology while trying to say that Scar's the Nazi. That's the crazy
That's
part.
the thing. That's what's so confusing. Yeah, because it's like, oh no, we're confusing you into thinking that that the people who want change. It's so odd. Also,
and it's worked though, because the thing is, like, everyone points out that, hey, Scar's thing was a Nazi rally, but then they don't realize that, oh, the lions were actually Nazis too. Like you need to like acknowledge that.
But see, I don't even think it's even that. It's not even like saying, oh, like the lions are Nazis. I'm saying it's like the visual representation of the way the animators and visually how they're interpreting it. It's like, okay, so I'm gonna use like the gold and red. I'm gonna change it to blonde and blue eyed. It's like that's the good. And even though so it's just visually, that's kind of how it goes.
That's what I was saying. I'm sorry. I should have been more clear. I'm saying like it gives you that vibe that they're Nazis. Like they're like white and they're like they have this white savior complex a lot of times in the movie. It's really crazy.
So it's like that's always like very it's I don't know where do you get the white savior element of it?
Well, because like they have this idea that like Michelle was just talking about, Simba is the one. He's the only true king. It can't be Scar.
But that's white savior is going to a place where you are. That's a different the definition slightly.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm confusing my thing. I'm sorry. White savior is when the white guys like help, like they're the ones that can protect the black guys, and that's not what happens in this movie.
Yeah, that's not what happens.
I'm sorry. I'm using the wrong terms.
But,
I'm using the wrong terms.
Also, there still is a lot of racism, so you're not totally off.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of racism, but I was using the wrong term. It's not racist, the wrong term.
But I will say also, side note, like, do yourself a favor, everyone listening. Go Google, like go on YouTube and watch clips of actual hyenas. They're the most adorable thing. They're so cute. They're like puppies, and you're not like they're like little cutest things.
Wow,
I think it'll eat you raw.
I'm not saying adopt a hyena. I'm saying, hey, in the movie they're being shown as like being really gross when in fact they're actually like really awesome. They're awesome. Like they deserve as much awe as lions and tigers and bears. Oh my.
Wikipedia tells me that hyena biologists sued for defamation of character after this movie.
That's amazing! Wow. That is amazing! That's amazing. Well done.
Going off that hyena thing, Beatriz, like how they're like kind of a lower class, like even below that, like the herbivores, like the wildebeest are like even a lower class below that. Like there's this thing that like all the other animals, they're not real. They're not real people because the wildebeests aren't really shown as being like conscious or like sentient. You know what I mean? They're just wild animals, unlike other animals in the movie. It's weird.
Look, I'm saying like it's like I don't mind like let's reality's sake, there is like a food chain where it comes to the animal kingdom. So I don't mind a blurring of surrealism and realism. So that to me didn't bother me that much. For me, it was just more, okay, of the animals we're picking that are going to have like human characteristics, they are making specific choices to make the villains who they are and the heroes who they are. And that's what's so off-putting. Because it's like, I don't need like a giraffe and to do like, I don't need like every single animal in Africa to have a speaking role in this movie. And I don't need to see them be sentient and everything. That's fine. For me, it's just, of the ones that you choose, there is this kind of like, okay, why are you making them look this way? Like, why are you making them act this way? Like, it's kind of like, okay, like, the hyenas are the ones that are rowdy and stuff, and Latinos get blamed for being too loud, and it's like, so I wonder why is it that the ones who are royalty are the ones who are well spoken and whatever, and then the ones who are villains are not. So there is a that's what for me. Like, I don't mind that the antelopes act like antelopes and don't think for themselves, because I'm like, okay, then that, I mean, I get that. Like, to me, like, that, to say that's like, oh, that's representative of like a social class, I'm like, that's a bit much. It's more of focusing specifically on the ones that they decide to make as characters. That's when we have to see like how they're being represented. Like,
and I agree with that. I agree that your thing is bigger. Like, your thing is a lot less subtle and a lot more in your face. I'm just going like saying that like there's this, like, we agree that the Lions are an upper class. They're like they're
royalty, essentially.
They're royalty. Yeah. They're royalty. And the thing is that they always talk about how the circle of life is blank. And it's true. That's the circle of life. But that's because they chose a situation where there is a circle of life. Like, if this, like, real life isn't like the movie. Real life isn't a circle of life like that in terms of like people, in terms of racism and the way people interact with each other. We're not like at a stage where we're eating each other right now, but they're trying to put that onto people. They're trying to say these are people, that there's these people at the top, this royalty, who are the top of the food chain. It's the circle of life, and they eat everybody else. And that's good. And just like the idea of that is kind of unsettling.
I for me, it's just like that, like to because the thing to fix, in order to fix that in the movie, would be to make the story human. And that's like it's like there has to be some sort of compromise in terms of like, we got to marry the animal world with this like anthropomorphic world that we're creating. Like, this isn't Zootopia where they go full into the human element. This is more like, okay, let's try and be somewhat realistic to how these animals act. So that's why I'm like, I don't see that as like such a grievance, because it's like, but that's like that. What else are they supposed to do? It's more of just like, okay, of the ones that you choose, how are you going to represent them, and how are you representing them is my thing. Like, that's where the big issues are. For that stuff, that's just like, it's like saying like, oh, but I'm not. It's like, why are these Pokemon? Like, I don't know. But I don't know. And I agree with you. I agree with you, Beatriz. But what I'm saying is, these are just more things on top. Like it's like if they have these racist things, they have these things where the lions, the quote, I'm just gonna say it, like the quote unquote white lions are the good ones, and the black lions are the bad ones. Like, and that's followed up even more in the next movie for some reason. Like, let's double down for some reason. And it's like it just feels like they just weren't conscious of what they were writing in some ways, because it was 1994. They didn't go all the ways they should, I think, in this. But it's like, even, and I agree. I'm not like staying up at night. Like, I'm not kept up at night because of the thing I'm mentioning. I'm just saying this is another thing that I thought of when I was watching. It wasn't like a big deal to me, but it was something that I thought of. Additionally.
Yes. Yeah. That's probably the best way to put it. Like, I'm not like, this is the end of the movie. Like, you're like, this is the death of it. Like, I'm just saying, like, it was something that was in the back of my mind by the end of the movie.
Right.
And I'll just say, I think you guys expressed it a lot more smartly than I could have. But I'll just say that what went through my head was like, we begin the movie with the framing of the circle of life sequence. So like, that's like front and center. And so that concept is with us throughout. And so because of that, like, we're kind of told to like be happy that status quo has returned, which feels kind of weird, right? Because I mean, obviously, like, the character arc of Simba is, I guess, the thing that changes in terms of like Simba accepting responsibility. But on the whole of society, all that we've really done is, hey, we've turned things back to normal. Hooray. And so like that just feels kind of weird to cheer for.
It's a very, this is not like, I'm not talking about political. I just mean like, it's a very conservative message. Like, it's not like conservative parties. I just mean like, it's saying like status quo is good. Like, it's, if you keep the status quo, things will continue to be good. And it's kind of strange.
So, yeah, there was a lot there. Thank you guys for that. I do want to go a little bit back to Scar specifically, because I think that,
Scar.
because, I think, well, I mean, I will say that he is my favorite character of the movie.
Totally.
I don't know about you guys. Yeah.
Yes.
But,
strong yes.
But in the very beginning of that discussion, it was talked about how like he's a little bit more, he's portrayed a bit more effeminate than the rest of the lions. I'd like like some kind of elaboration on like how you guys see Scar's character in here. Sam, I don't know if you have any specific Scar thoughts.
I mean, the whole Disney villains being coded gay, that's been a topic of conversation for years. Obviously, Scar is one of those examples. It's there. Personally, Scar, he's a guy. He's a lion. So, whoop-de-doo. I like his elbow hair. There you go. He has hair on his elbows, and I like it.
All right. Michelle, do you want to go deeper into Scar?
I always loved Scar the most as a kid. And I think it's just because I was a really angry kid, so I always liked the angry characters. And Scar was the most interesting. That's the thing, too. Like, a lot of times the villains just end up being way more interesting and have higher stakes than a lot of the protagonists who are quote-unquote good. So there's, like, a lot more to be intrigued by. But Scar, like, his voice is amazing. He, like, yeah, he is effeminate. But, like, I think that's really great, even though we're not supposed to think that. Like, the movie's telling us not to. They're telling us he's the enemy. But he's great. I just love... Yeah. Like, I know it's not really his voice singing. It's like they got some other guy, but like his song is like the best song in the movie.
Okay, and calm down. No way.
No, I'm with Michelle. Be Prepared is great.
Be Prepared is the best song in this movie.
It's so well choreographed and it pumps you up to be evil. Scar, he's so memorable, right? That's the thing. Like, Scar's one of the top things you remember about that movie, and that's pretty cool because he left his mark on the world.
Yeah. I mean, like, what I like about Scar is like
he gets the volcano to erupt.
Yeah, he
did. He is able to manipulate his surroundings, and in general, he's a very manipulative kind of guy. You know, like his interactions with Simba are like very like
very smart.
They're smart. They feel almost gaslighty. Like especially at the end, it's like, well, you were responsible for killing him. You know, like that kind of stuff. But he does it in such a way that like it feels so like straight to the heart. And then he also gets like very vicious scenes like throwing off Mufasa off the cliff, and like that kind of viciousness feels like it gives the story a little bit extra teeth than you'd get out of your normal Disney movie. When I was watching it, like I was kind of shocked at like how visceral those scenes felt, even though like I know what's gonna happen. But there's something about like Scar's like facial expressions during all of that like really helps a lot. I think they do well with like giving him good hand gesture work too, which we'll talk about the live action version later. But like that's definitely like a benefit to having these lines animated in an anthropomorphized way. Like they're able to do more like in terms of their expression. I think Scar is the biggest beneficiary of that. So like I love all of Scar's character.
Yeah, like there's a moment in the song where he like turns around and his like mane flips like its hair. Like you can't do that in like with a real lion. Like, but it works because it's a little bit anthropomorphized, just a little bit. And also, just before we move on, Michelle, this is Jeremy Irons. He does sing this song.
Like he does it all.
Not all. Jeremy Irons does most of the song, but the climax is taken over by Jim Cummings because Irons lost his voice in the middle.
It sounded like Jim.
Yeah, like and like that's the part that I love about it, is like Jeremy Irons throughout the song, like he's doing like the talk singing, but he's doing it in a way like, you know, feels very, very like villainy, twirling mustache. But then like it gets like turned up to 11 at the end when Jim Cummings steps in, like he like gives it like an extra oomph. So like I love like just like the added energy as like the song comes to an end, and it fits with the rest of the visuals too, of like the rocks coming up in the sky and the hyenas going So like it just that number is like great in a lot of different ways, and I think that actually switching from Irons to Cummings actually helps the song at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's really, I don't know, it's a great piece. But to go off like the Scar stuff, like I don't think we talked specifically about how he looks effeminate. Like there's also that he has he's smaller than Mufasa. He's a little more skinny, but he also has like eyeshadow and stuff. Like like his eyes have like not mascara, but I don't know the term for everything. But he has like his eyes are darker and they have like longer eyelashes. I think I'm not looking at a picture of him right now,
Plus, some of the word choices he says,
Yes.
like when he doesn't show up at Simba's ceremony, he's like, "Oh, I'll practice my curtsy." And when he does the hair flip, he says "sensational."
Yeah.
So,
Very
like,
foppish.
there's body language, there's character design, there's a lot like reinforcing it from all sides.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that's something lost in the transition from this anthropomorphized style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the introductory scene of Scar is just interesting in like how like immediately they put the contrast in, like Mufasa like roars at him and it's like, "Are you challenging me?" And Scar's like, "Well, no, I know I'm physically weaker than you," and like he kind of like walks off. It gives like a little booty shake at the end there. So like it just very quickly we're setting up that like Scar and Mufasa are just like very different physically. And in terms of like their styles, so and that goes on through the rest of the movie.
But I mean, then there's also this idea that like Scar's claws are like out like most of the movie, right? Like I don't think there's times when his claws are in, and it's just like it's another thing on top of like this guy's like this, and he's always a threat too. Like on top of that, like he's effeminate, he's like this, he kind of comes off as gay coded, and there's just he's dangerous too, and it's like. It's just this added factor that's not really necessary, except that he's a villain.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then like at the ending sequences, like also he kind of gets like a bit cowardly almost, and like he's like changing his views, like blaming the hyenas and stuff, and trying to sneak out. So like all your standard villain trope thingies come up at the end, but
yeah.
We mentioned Be Prepared as the musical sequence. Circle of Life, I think Beatriz, you also mentioned like the opening sequence. Like what did you love about like how the movie just starts with that?
I mean, because it just sets the tone. Just whether it's through the sound, even though the lyrics, it's like it basically just isn't it like translation like this is a story of a lion. It's like very but here comes the story of a lion. But it literally just screams in your face. It like gets you like going. It just starts and then it ends the way the title shows up, just with the boom, like that. And the way I think it also ends with a boom of like Lion King. So it's like and just the just thematically, just the way that they established the melody of like that score of like through the circle life, and they managed to mimic it at the end, and having that kind of leitmotif throughout the film, and it's so it really does kind of. I mean, yeah, it's like it's the whole. It kind of what's that word? I mean, establishes the whole like monarchy type of thing. But it's just so beautiful, and does it like, but like whether or not whatever someone's opinions of a monarchy is, it just quickly like establishes like, oh, here's the king, here is the future king, here is this like celebration and all that, and I know it was just the song itself had all the elements of just like of power and glory and all that.
It does a much better job of exposition than any type of talking could do.
Any type of talking could do. And it also shows you the vastness of the kingdom too. And it's just the way just visually gives you everything. And the fact that the beginning opens with in a foreign language. So it's like, we're about to take you to another world. We're about like foreign as into like the English speaking audience that Disney mainly catered to. So it was just like, look, we're about to take you to this entire different world, different kingdom of like, it's basically opening doors, being like, welcome to the animal kingdom, welcome to the safari, welcome to this. And it just does so much. It's setting up the visual, setting up the tone, setting up like you're about to go through a story, and it's gonna be as epic as this sounds. And I think the quote live action adaptation literally copied the sequence like frame by frame. Like it copied it, because there's like that was the biggest thing from, I think it was from if you see it in the trailers and they do comparisons to the two, it's the same thing. And a lot of people complain, they're like, well, you should credit the original people, but two, also like, if it's the same thing, why are you remaking it? You should do something different. But also like that opening sequence is perfection. it's perfection. So I was like, I agree that they should have changed. We haven't seen the movie yet, so we don't know if they do change some things or not. But from that standpoint, it's incredible. And by the end, you buy into the more anthropomorphic elements, because in the beginning it starts out being very much like, okay, these animals are starting to act kind of like animals do, even though the one strange thing is that they're all coming to this one point together. And then you see it's like, oh, it's the king has arrived and all that. So I don't know. I just think it was, I mean, to me, it still is like the one of if not.
But I think speaking of that, like with the live action stuff, like I think this is honestly the riskiest thing Disney has ever done, because this will make or break the movie. Like this will be like the thing that'll tell me if like you can make this as like a realistic, because like I don't think you can. I think the slight anthropomorphization of the animals is like kind of necessary for the scene to work, and the style and the stylist and the style of like how like the sun isn't quite like how the sun is in real life, and how the reflections of the birds are a little too perfect and stuff. Like the colors are just so important to that scene. Like I don't think this scene works if you try to make it quote unquote realistic.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. I know. That's what I'm saying. We'll see. But I mean, like, I think this is just not going to work. And I mean, I hope it does, but I just think it's not it's risky. It's not the easy way to go, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Beatriz, you mentioned you made a good point about like this, like kind of taking you into a different world with like the Zulu vocals introing you, and like also I love like the first shot is the sunrise coming up, and like that just like immediately gives you like a certain vibe to it. And it is interesting that the first trailer for the original Lion King was just this scene, like that was the trailer, just this scene, and now the live action Lion King is also like did the same thing for their first trailer, just using a lot of this scene, but like because like it's so emblematic of the tone that the movie is going for, right? So that definitely Circle of Life, very very nice. The other musical numbers in this movie are I Just Can't Wait to Be King. I'm gonna say I'm not a fan of that one personally.
How dare you?
It's my least favorite.
Yeah,
how dare all of you?
The marketing side of this movie relentlessly pushed this in like trying to get you to buy the VHS and DVD copies. You're like, this is it. This is the kid song everyone loves. No, it's not. At least not for me.
The kid song everyone loves. I feel so attacked right now. I'm so sorry. I just can't wait to be king. And poor young Simba, which is my favorite character, is young Simba, not older Simba. Young Simba, young Nala are like the greatest pair.
Yeah,
their own movie.
Both are so much weaker than the kid versions. It's true.
This is the first song I memorized. I loved this song.
Like it's not like I don't know. I'm be prepared. It's like it's great, but I mean, I just can't wait to be king. That's the song you sing along to. It's that in Circle of Life. Those are the ones you sing. Those are the ones you sing at karaoke. Like I don't want to sing about how you better be prepared to kill someone. No, I want to sing about I can't wait.
I think we have different moralities here.
Yeah. Like, oh my god,
I think that's
so good. Okay. And the colors, the way like the way it just those dramatic shift, and it just slowly goes into like craziness. And it's like when you sing in musicals, you sing as the emotions you can't actually say. So it's like it just really goes full surrealist, and it just shows you why it's so good, and it's just so easy to sing along to, and it's such a great piece and sequence, and
it might be
it's not a bad song. I just don't think it's as good as the other great songs.
I
That's
disagree.
Okay.
It's very, very show tunes, and I love it. It's like
maybe
also
that's why I don't like it.
Yeah, no, it's really show tunes. Yeah, like
it's really show tunesy. Also, it's being sung by the kid actor, and kids singing is always a dicey proposition. So, like those two factors together, I will say I enjoy the visual part of it. Like the animal pyramid is like very colorful, and you got like the zebras getting like green striped at some point. So they do a lot of fun stuff with like the animals, and Zazu is kind of just along for the ride. But
Zazu is great.
But the actual singing of that, I can't get into it.
Well, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Like, you're missing out.
I mean,
now, we also have the iconic sequence of Hakuna Matata, which also leads us to talk about Timon and Pumbaa, who are the comic relief characters of this movie. It's kind of a surprise that we haven't mentioned them at all this far into the podcast so far.
They're
but
such a small part in the movie, though.
They do, yeah.
but they're the
late.
two gay coupling people who raised Simba to be a king. I mean, that's pretty significant, even if we don't get to actually see that happen the whole movie.
They have their own movie and their own TV
Oh my
series.
god, they do have their own movie. It's true.
Yeah, I should make the admission that I've seen Lion King 1.5 more often than I've seen Lion
That is
King
a
1,
travesty.
so...
That is a travesty. You are wrong.
I've seen Timon and Pumbaa's adventures like 10 times in my life, so that's why when I rewatched this, I was like, wow, they're not actually in the movie a lot. Why did I spend so much of my life?
But they're so necessary. Like if they had come 1 second later, the movie would have started to lull. The movie would have started to lull. It would have started it needed that boost and energy that they brought in. So it was
Simba also would have died.
Yeah,
Simba
he would have died.
Yes.
He would have died, of course. But if they had stretched out his adventures on his own between running away and Timon and Pumbaa, even for a second, it still would have been it was just the amount, just from a structural standpoint for the story and the beats of the story, like the audience needed Timon and Pumbaa exactly when they came in. Like they needed that energy, or else the pacing was going to be completely off.
Yeah, that makes, and it definitely comes right after Simba get forced to run away, and we get a really sad moment, so we kind of need to bring ourselves back up, and that's done by Timon and Pumbaa singing about no worries.
And they do get a Shakespeare reference in there, which is nice nod to the thing that inspired the guy who inspired the entire story.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And also it kind of it serves the story in terms of Simba being feeling responsible for the death of his father, and then Timon and Pumbaa are hey, just forget about your past, don't deal with responsibilities, and so that sets up Nala's purpose later in the movie of, hey, you do have responsibilities and you should be paying attention to that. So I guess Timon and Pumbaa are also important in terms of leading Simba astray. It is it's interesting because I went to to therapy sessions, group therapy sessions, and Hakuna Matata was discussed as hey, maybe anxiety, you should not worry about these things. So I feel Hakuna Matata is taken by people in a very positive way, but in this movie it's not really positive, because at the end Nala shows up to be yo, that's not right. So I don't know how you guys feel about this.
It's more, I think Hakuna Matata means no worries. It doesn't say ignore your responsibilities. It's more okay, the past is the past. You gotta you can't change the past, but it's not telling you don't change the future.
That's how Simba reads it, though, and that's how I think he has to change how he understands it.
Right, he reads it as, okay, I'm not gonna have any responsibility.
Yeah.
But I think the term Hakuna Matata means no worries. That doesn't necessarily mean no responsibility.
Agreed.
So I think that's why, I don't see that much of a, I don't see the movie saying, oh, Hakuna Matata is not the way to go. I think it's just saying, Simba, that's not the only, you're reading it in a wrong way. I think is more what it is.
And going into what the movie's saying, Timon and Pumbaa can have that, lifestyle because they don't have any responsibility, and that's just okay because they don't need it. But the movie's telling us, we take what the movie's telling us as fact, Simba is the king. He needs to have responsibility. He needs to do things. And he can't just do nothing all the time. He has to actually take action. And with that message, with Hakuna Matata, I guess it makes sense that Timon and Pumbaa are a little more lackadaisical than Simba can be.
Mm-hmm. So basically, Simba is stuck in this circle of life, and Timon and Pumbaa are two little dots that just are floating off from the sky.
And I'm not trying to say what I'm walking around. It's I'm not trying to make any points here. I'm just trying to say that's why I don't view Hakuna Matata as anything bad either.
Okay. That makes sense. So, like, it because the movie does put a lot of emphasis on Simba's interpretation of it, especially when we get to like conflict with Nala, like him not wanting to deal with the past by not going with his responsibilities. And this around here is when "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" also gets in, and we have
That's
like
my
Simba
favorite
and Nala's.
song.
Okay, talk about that. What do you like about this
All
part?
right, "Can You Feel the Love Tonight"? It's just love song. I love love songs. It's beautiful, wonderful. I don't know. I just like it. I think for me, it's the song with the least bombast of the entire movie, and I like it. I don't know. Like we all need a minute to just chill. Like, can you feel the love tonight? Not really, but they do, so it's fine.
And those bedroom eyes.
Yeah.
That still makes me uncomfortable.
The Nala look
It does. It
always
does.
shook me.
I was like,
I
I
understand what it meant.
I saw it and I was like, I don't like this. Like, no, I don't.
No, even as a kid, it made me uncomfortable, and I didn't know why. And as an adult,
Yeah.
I'm like, this makes me more uncomfortable.
More uncomfortable. I'm like, now I understand why it made me uncomfortable, and I still don't like it.
All your best friends you haven't met in like a decade or more. You really want to do this right now?
And because they're lions, they're related. There's also that part.
Yeah, they're related.
Yeah.
Oh, well then, yeah.
Because how lions work is the leader of the pride has kids with every single lion and every single woman in the pride.
Right.
So
we have to assume that Mufasa got busy.
yes. So what I'm saying is Nala and Simba are actually half siblings.
So
Why? So like all the wives are Mufasa's wife? Then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They make it out that he's monogamous in the movie, but he's not.
he's not.
Like that's just not what's
like
not what's
where
happening.
who like outside like who I even if Nala was like Scar's daughter, it's like she'd still be related to Simba. So it's like what other male lions do you see?
like if you know the term harem, like that's actually what the lions' wives are called. They're a harem of wives.
Yeah.
Like that's actually like what it refers to.
There should be a lion anime, except there already is.
There is a lion anime.
Yeah, Kimba. But there should be another lion anime about this harem sort of thing, and it could be like a lion harem anime.
Great.
I'll sell that to somebody, I'm sure.
I think this is a good time to bring up an important question that I'm afraid to ask, but I think people have opinions on this. Is adult Simba hot?
Oh my god.
No.
Okay.
Mufasa is hotter.
Okay. Well, why is Mufasa hot and adult Simba?
That
not?
wasn't the question, Sam. You just have to bring that up. Like this, you like brought this.
Sam, go.
Yeah, no. Let's see. Why is Mufasa hot?
Because he's a dad. He's voiced by James Earl Jones.
Okay, that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's just sexier than Simba.
So is Vader hot? Because that's basically him too.
Yeah.
Simba's just Matthew Broderick. Like, what's hot about that?
Yeah, that's really unattractive. They should have found somebody way hotter to voice Simba. I agree.
I want to point out, like, there's in the middle of Hakuna Matata, you get the montage of him growing up, and like, there's like one shot of him like in teen form.
His teen form is so good. He's the awkward hair.
Yeah, it's like just like a curl going on. It's like very like bright red, and so like in Lion King 1.5, they focus on him in his teen form, and so you get a better glimpse. Yeah, they do. There's like a whole scene where they do like a bug eating contest of him as a teen. But in this movie, it's just like 2 seconds of it. But it's like, oh, hey, look, in between there, I can see Simba being cute. But like as a kid and then straight to adult, it's like nah. But in the middle, I can see it. But I bring this up because I know that there's some people who think that some lions in Lion King are sexy, so I figured I'd see if anybody was here.
Everyone likes Kobu.
Second is obviously
sexy.
Yeah,
that's
Kobu.
what everyone loves is Kobu.
He's the more safe version of Scar. They just can't commit to Scars with that meme.
Yeah. Kobu is like if Scar and Simba were one lion, which like I can get the appeal, but Mufasa, also Nala and Sarabi.
Nala's so hot, and Sarabi. Yeah, Sarabi is so hot. Why was she king again? She's so cool.
What did you say? What did you say, Michelle?
Why isn't she king again? She's just like she's
that's
so
the other
cool.
thing. That's the other thing, Michelle. I hate to break it to you, but when Simba becomes king,
Oh no!
Mom becomes his wife. That's part of
Oh, stop it.
No!
Stop that.
It's true. It's how the lions work in
Wait,
the
so
wild.
was Sarabi like his favorite wife? Basically?
I'm
She,
not
sleeps
giving you any more
in the
information
cave
than
with
that.
him.
Michelle, I don't have more information. I'm just telling you how it works in the wild.
God, Simba, don't do that, please. Break the chain. Matata, don't do it.
Oh my
While she's brought up, I just want to say, Scar giving her a big slap is like an obvious, like, hey, you're supposed to hate this guy move. It's like, okay, sure. Just give her a big old slap.
Poor Sarabi.
Yeah, poor Sarabi.
Where's her movie?
Yeah.
What about her?
Is she even in Lion King 2? I forget.
No.
Wow.
Maybe did she die in between?
Probably.
I
did.
mean, her voice actress died like a year after the movie.
Oh, okay, never mind.
So that's probably why.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm less angry now. I'm less angry.
Yeah. So, but somebody mentioned earlier that they preferred the younger versions of Simba and Nala to the older versions. So who said that?
Just said it, and I agree. It's
What-
true.
What's the argument there?
They have more spunk. Their child actors are just more fun to listen to. They're they're excited about the world. They're trying to figure out their place in everything. They kind of push back against some dumb ideas, like the fact that they're betrothed. And Simba keeps throwing out all these like new things he wants to do when he's king that are different from like the old ways. Eventually he'll fall in line when he's an adult. It's just like they have more energy, and it feels like there's so much possibility. Whereas like them being adults, it's like they have to do all the rules now. Like there's no freedom left. Like they're falling in line basically, and that's not as interesting.
Yeah. It like the message of the movie is also kind of like you grow up and you get more quote unquote realistic about life. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of depressing. Like I don't think that's a good way to live personally.
Whereas Timon and Pumbaa don't live that way at all.
Yeah.
And they're totally fine.
They are totally fine. But there's this weird implication that Simba can't stay with them. Like, he has to resume the throne. He has to fall in line. He can't be a Timon or Pumbaa. He's not allowed to live outside of his society.
Honestly, I think Simba should have just stayed with Timon and Pumbaa. Like, TBH. I honestly think that he had no reason to go back.
Nala could have just, like,
she
done
could
the
have
whole
been
thing.
the king. Yeah, no, it would have been great.
No, that's a real, and also that's a real thing in the wild too. Not to get continually biological here, but like if a female in the pride becomes the strongest, they'll actually like produce more testosterone and stuff, and like grow like a mane and stuff. Like it's really cool. Like that's not an unknown. That's like not a crazy thing in the wild. Like it happens.
Yeah. Do they have the harem too then?
Yeah.
If they, oh, I want to see that anime right now.
Michelle is into this.
The Lady Lion King and her harem. Oh wow.
But,
this is too much for Michelle.
It's the perfect amount.
Beatriz, you're gonna say something?
I will say, like, Nala has a line in the movie where she goes, like, I left to find help. So I don't know if she was planning on finding Simba. Yeah. She wasn't looking for him. So it's more of just, like, it adds more to, like, oh, the destiny led her here.
Yeah.
But it's more like she did go to find help. As in, like, it could have been, like, she went to find more support from other animals and was going back. Like, I saw a cheetah in the beginning. So it's like, you know, it's like in like the beginning sequence of Circle of Life. So it's like maybe she was going off to find like other apex predators to be like, we need to bring down Scar and whatever. So that could have been its own tale.
Yeah.
I personally, I don't hold anything against Nala. It's more just like the way the movie presents it. Like I think Nala's fine.
Yeah. And we get this whole ending sequence of like them getting together and overthrowing Scar. We have Timon dressed. He literally says, "Do you want me to dress and drag and do the hula?" And it cuts to them doing the hula.
There's that.
Any opinions?
Timon said gay rights.
Yeah, he did say gay rights. He and his partner did a great job raising the future king, and they're comfortable in themselves.
It was really interesting to me how, like, they made a whole joke, like, oh, haha, we can't say fart, and, like, Hakuna Matata, but they're like, oh, let's just dress and drag later.
Yeah, that's fine.
Really makes you think.
Yeah. I want to say, like, I really love. Obviously, it's very fortuitous that a lightning bolt strikes right in front of the rock and like starts a big fire, but like it's perfect for like setting the scene.
It's also pretty like I mean, this whole movie's pretty like nice that things happen the way they do. Like all of Africa goes bare the second Mufasa dies. Like sure,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
and it rains the second Simba takes power again.
Yes,
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like the rain comes
Oh
and
my
all
God.
the grass is back.
The slow mo of Simba walking up is like I don't know about you, but I could not help laughing at that. Like it was so funny, just the way they animated it. Like everyone slowly looking up at him as he goes up into the top of Pride Rock.
I feel like that, like the music's trying its best to make it feel important. I think when I was 2, it got past me, but this time around, it did feel really like nobody knows who this guy is. They're all just like freaking out.
I'm gonna say it worked on me. I got like the epicness of it. It's like, yeah, this is triumph and da 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 da. Like it all hit my heartstrings, even though like it's so obvious what they're like trying to make you feel, but like I couldn't help it. But yeah, so let's hear other characters that we have not touched yet. Zazu, anybody a fan of Zazu around here?
I like him. I feel like he's also
fine.
kind of queer coded in a different way than Scar, which is interesting.
I feel people are restraining
No.
themselves.
I was just like, I don't know. I thought he was just coded as British.
Yeah.
Aren't all
That's
British
what I
people
thought.
gay?
It's a gay or European song.
Yeah, basically.
I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts.
And I mean, like, and he has the giant nose and stuff. Like, there's definitely like a joke there too.
There they are, standing in a row. I really hate that John Oliver is going to play him. I'm sorry.
Why are you so mad at John Oliver?
Gay people don't know who John Oliver is.
What?
But although, like, really, if you want to continue the British coding, could you think of a more British person to take up the mantle?
I mean, I kind of like that. And I kind of like the fact with John Oliver, it's like he doesn't have the posh accent. So it kind of goes against the Zazu in the movie that does kind of. It's a very proper and prim and like, kind of reads like not British, but like Alfred from Batman. So I don't know. It's like I kind of like the John Oliver decision because it gives like a different. It's going to be a different feel. It's definitely going to be a different Zazu in that sense.
I mean, we also have Beyonce, but I mean, like, okay. Can we talk about the live action movie yet? Because
one more thing, Rafiki. Does anybody care about Rafiki? I'm gonna say he's kind of annoying in the part that he enters. Like, if
I forgot.
So,
I forgot
might
he
have
existed.
thoughts about.
he kind of employs the magical Negro trope in a way that is uncomfortable,
Yeah.
considering that we're all in Africa, and he's a monkey.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah. The only thing that like is that I remember specifically is that like he does kung fu in the fight sequence at the end, and that's like out of nowhere. But like his actual thing of like convinced of like helping Simba find Mufasa in the clouds or whatever, it felt very superfluous to me, and I was like, okay, let's get on with it. So I'm just saying Rafiki does not do it for me. So
Yeah.
He's a good artist. I'll at least give him that.
Yeah, he's good at art. I like his little lion drawing.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, we didn't talk about the hyenas.
Yeah.
we talked about the problematicness of the hyenas, but not
Yeah,
like
but we didn't
actually
talk
the
about
characters.
the actual hyenas.
They had some good lines.
Yeah, that they're also good
Cactus
comic characters. Yeah.
Which one's the? I forget the names of them.
Oh my god, Shenzi, Bonzi,
And Ed.
Bonsai and Ed.
It's just Ed for some reason.
Is Ed a problem? Like, is Ed problematic?
In that he doesn't talk and just goes ha ha ha.
Well, I think he's definitely supposed to be like mentally challenged.
Yeah.
That's his whole joke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not great.
It's unclear because again, like these are still animals, and it's also in some way like he's just an animal unlike them. So it's like it's hard to tell when things are jokes and when things are just like we're getting more absurd and more surrealist, like with the other parts of the movies. Like it's unclear.
Uh-huh. I'll say that I do appreciate that scene where like Scar is king and then the hyenas come in to like air their grievances. That at least like gave them a little bit of like, hey, we're our own personalities, you know. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I think that scene is pretty good for how low key it is to the rest of the story. But yeah.
I just think like as we're like at the end here, like at all the characters, like I just realized that all the characters, like they really don't have a lot of time on screen.
They
just
don't.
None of them. I think the one with the most time on screen might
Simba.
be young Simba.
Yeah.
Young Simba, I think,
Yeah.
has more
Yeah,
screen time.
and that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and like
Better than adult Simba, so that was
It's
a
like-
good
yeah.
call.
Young Simba, I think Mufasa had like a very big presence.
He does.
Yeah,
But
I
then
was
he
gonna say
disappears.
Mufasa
Yeah,
is-
yeah. He disappears like when young Simba
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
disappears. Yeah.
And then he shows up a little later in the movie too.
Yeah.
Remember who you are.
Yeah.
One true king.
That scene is like as if like God is talking.
I
It's
know,
like
there's
the
something
colors
going-
open and the sky opens. It's like he's having like a vision there. So I was very interested in the imagery used there. But yeah, so part of the reason that we're here, besides the fact that it's Father's Day, even though I didn't actually plan this to be recorded on Father's Day, so that's a lie. The actual reason is that Disney is putting out what they call a live action, but is actually a CGI animated animals against live action backgrounds version
Just
of The
like
Lion King.
Dinosaur.
Yes,
Yep.
there was a Disney movie by the name of
Oh,
Dinosaur
yeah.
from the year 2000
my
that did
God, I
something
can't-
similar.
I can't believe it.
Do you remember they had those kids meal toys?
With like the puppet
Happy-
things.
Yeah, the puppet dinosaurs. I had like 3 of them. That
Oh
was
my
a
God.
weird toy time.
I feel
can't
like I
believe
had
it.
those toys too, actually.
Yeah, I
they were
definitely
really
did too.
popular.
But
We should
anyways,
do a podcast on dinosaurs someday.
That's a weird movie. That's a
Yeah.
Land Before Time, though.
Oh my god, please, yes, a true classic.
Many dinosaur movies we'll get to, but Lion King, this is supposed to be released on July 19th, so that's about a month out from where we're recording. Directed by Jon Favreau. It's going to have the voices of Donald Glover, Beyonce, as previously mentioned, James Earl Jones will return to be Mufasa. You'll have John Oliver, Seth Rogen, Chiwetel Ejiofor. So it's a really stacked cast. And the footage that we've gotten is it gets very realistic to animals as opposed to the anthropomorphization that we see in the 1990s version. So with that in mind, like knowing what we know about this new version of Lion King, what are you expecting? What differences do you think will be harmful or beneficial to this? Sarah, you seem to have wanted to talk about this all pod, so we'll go to you first.
I'm just like, I don't know why we're hyping. Like, okay, here's the thing. The problem with this movie as live action, with all the actors that we have like Beyonce and Donald Glover and like all these big names playing the adult characters in this movie. And the problem with that is, after watching this movie again, is the adult characters really don't have a lot of time on screen. And what I'm worried about is that, like, I want them to make the movie like the best movie they can, like with this thing. And I'm worried about some other things like animation, anthropomorphization, like it changes how things come across. But the biggest thing I'm worried about is they're going to make concessions to the plot and the way things go and drag things out in the second act just so that characters like Nala and adult Simba get more time on screen, because that's why people are going to this movie. And that just seems because it's Beyonce. Like, and I'm saying this and I'm like, I want Beyonce to have a lot of time on screen. Like, I do. I want her to have a song. They wrote a whole new song for her. Like,
I mean, that's good because that gives Nala more character development.
No.
There's one thing that the live action remakes have done well. Like, speaking with Aladdin, they gave Jasmine an entire new thing, and it gave an entirely good layer to her character. So it might be good. I wouldn't. And it again, the movie, the animated movie is like not even 90 minutes.
Yes.
So they could just add more and make it like a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, but like, is a 2-hour Lion King movie?
Do we even? Oh man, they haven't released how long this movie is yet. I just looked it up. Like that is a true statement.
Like for me, with all these live action remakes, whatever, they're too long.
Yeah.
And they're painful, and I
loved Aladdin. I disagree.
I haven't seen Aladdin.
Cinderella was really good. Aladdin was good.
The Beauty and the Beast remake was not the crazy things they added. Like
it's horrible.
It was a terrible decision to flesh out the story.
Hot take. I like that better than the original animated movie. The animated movie for Beauty and the Beast lacked substance. Like a lot of substance that they gave the characters in the live action one.
My hot take is, Beatriz, that neither of the movies are good, but the new live action Beauty and the Beast is actively problematic.
It's not good.
All right.
That's like my like what are they gonna do? Like obviously, you know, more characterization for Nala and stuff. That would be good. I'm hoping for maybe more Sarabi stuff. Great, wonderful. But
Scar redemption. That's what I think. Scar redemption.
Something magical about the original is its length, and like it doesn't waste any time. Like Beatrice earlier, you were saying, "Oh yeah, Timon and Pumbaa came in exactly when they should have." Because if they didn't, the movie would have dragged on. And I feel like, well, what's going to happen if we don't have that? Are we just going to have Simba wandering the desert for like 10 minutes?
I don't think that's what's happening though. If they gave Nala a new song, and it's Beyonce Nala.
What is going to happen? You know,
I'm going to briefly interject that Jon Favreau has given an interview where there are not going to be new songs in the body of the film. At the end of the movie, they'll put new songs.
The credits.
It just gets a credit song. Yeah, that is not a real song. Though. That's just like no one's gonna.
That's a real song. Like, calm down.
No, but it's a real song, Beatriz. But it's not like part of the musical. It's a real song, but it's not like a musical number in the movie.
Right.
And that's like what I was expecting. Like I wanted that. Like I don't really like. Cool, Beyonce has a new song. That's great, but it's like Nala's not getting a song then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like also based on other it says here, according to Wikipedia, he's given a different interview with comingsoon.net that it is going to be longer than the original film. They said part of what we're doing here is to give it more dimension, not just visually, but both story-wise and emotionally. So you guys are on the right track. Like, this is going to be a longer movie. But I think that Sam brings up a good point. Like, it never, the animated movie, like, it feels like it runs pretty quickly, and like it doesn't feel like it's wasting time anywhere. So that's definitely something that, like, if you're going to add story elements, that's also something to like look out for. Like, if those added things are actually going to like mean something, or because there's already an existing story and we know like the foundation of it. If they add new things, are we going to be like as viewers, is it going to be enough to be like, oh, okay, I'm into this, or can we get to the part that I know? Like, I wonder what that kind of interaction is going to be once we get the movie.
Right. The limits to this conversation is that we won't know. The movie's not out yet. So like, that's why I'm like, it's one thing to have trepidations, but I wouldn't go so far as to say like, I would get angry at the movie just yet, just because we haven't seen it. So like, it's good to have the worries, but also it's like, hey, maybe this movie's going to prove us wrong, and it is going to flow out in pacing. Like, we don't know yet.
I think the thing is, like, I'm not mad at this movie specifically. I'm just mad at this whole idea of making all these animated movies live action. Like, I think that they're just coming at these movies from the exact wrong angle. Like, it just doesn't, I don't know. Like, if you're gonna remake a movie, at least try for something different. But they keep remaking movies and trying to make things shot for shot the same way.
I disagree, because that's making, that is assume. Have you seen Cinderella? Have you seen Maleficent? Have you seen the most Aladdin? Like, they do add things. That's my thing. It's like, you're making a generalization that all these live action movies are doing shot for these things, and in some sequences, maybe sure they are, but they are adding new things to the movies. So that's why I'm kind of really going against this generalization, because that's what it is. It's a generalization, and I don't understand why people have an issue with like it. Sometimes a movie can be a technological achievement in and of itself. It's like, why? Like, I understand wanting a new IP, new everything, but also what's so wrong about saying, hey, why don't we try and make this quote unquote live action, like hyper realistic? Let's see if we can make this technical achievement possible. And that in itself, and wanting to make a movie just for the sake of that, is also valid. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't like that generalization of like, oh, they're just doing shot for shot when they're not.
You didn't let me finish my sentence, Beatriz.
Just saying. That was
no. But I was going to say that they do have these movies that they're taking shot for shot mixed with new scenes. And the new scenes are generally the stuff I like best out of these live action movies, but they put so much emphasis on the parts that are shot for shot that they're putting a huge emphasis on the circle of life scene in the new movie. And it's like, cool, I saw that in kind of the best way possible already in the animated movie. Like, show me something new that this movie can do now that we have a bigger budget, that we have a different cast. Like, what I was excited for is like with Beyonce getting a song is Nala's voice actress can sing an amazing song now. Let's do that. Let's do that in the body of the film. And hearing that they're not doing that is kind of like, they're just taking this thing, they're just throwing away options they have essentially. And it kind of feels weird.
I wonder how much they're gonna take cues from the musical.
Yeah, the musical. Well, like, here's the thing. It's like, why was the musical allowed to have place such emphasis on this stuff when in the live action again, not really live action, but the live action remake isn't allowed to do it. It's like, why are these things, like, why is that so bad? Like, why is a theater adaptation okay, but then the film adaptation is not okay? Like, the live action adaptation is not okay. Like, I just don't like if you're going to be consistent and you don't like the remakes, then be consistent across the board. It's like, then don't do the Broadway shows. Don't do this. Be against it all. Because I don't know. I'm like, but in the Lion King musical is amazing. It's incredible. And the way that they were able to reinterpret these characters and were able to, the costume design, everything, the way they were able to adapt this story, which again is a remake of Hamlet, an interpretation of Hamlet, the way that they were able to adapt it to the stage was so incredible that why can't the hyper-realistic the hyper-realistic way of like remaking this, why is that lesser than, why does that make people angry when that has its own interpretation too? Like, my thing, like me, I have an issue with, if you're gonna do the shot for shot, you need to pay the animators who did it first. Like, you need to give them credit and you need to give them royalties. That's my thing. That's my issue. If they want to do the shot for shot because they want to see if they can just hyper realistically, like, how cool would that look? That I respect. It's like, okay, that's what you want to do. That is your vision. All right, I'm not going to shoot you down for wanting to take on this feat. Are they going to add new stuff? Maybe, but I don't know. I just really disagree with you.
I will just jump off of this and say that along with the lines of like giving the animators credit, the only grievance I have with this new movie is the fact that they're pushing so hard that it's a live action movie, that it's not animation. And like, that part is what annoys me. The idea that it needs to be live action to have a different tone, to have that to be more serious feeling, because that's the vibe that I'm getting from the marketing. It's like, oh, by making it live action, we're making it totally different, but like just ignoring the fact that like CGI, like photorealistic animation is animation. And like, that's a technological achievement. That's something that you should be proud of doing. But they focus so much on like calling it live action just to differentiate it. And like, it feels like brushing aside the fact that like, this is animation and it's like a very impressive form. Yeah. But you're kind of like shoving it aside for the sake of making it feel like more adult or having a wider audience because it's quote live action version. And like, that's my beef with it. Now, will it be impressive to watch? For sure. And I'm excited to see that, like to see like just how the transfer happens. But that's why like I feel very icky about calling it live action, because I feel like I'm like doing a disservice to the people who are like working in the field of animation to make all this possible. And
I want to make sure like this, I completely agree. And I don't want to, I also want to say like, with that said, this is not downplaying the fact that the people that filmed the live action backgrounds, like that's not as easy as it looks. Like, it's like, oh, they just had to put the camera anywhere, then put then other people put animation in. Like the actual way they set up the shots of the real backgrounds, like that's more, it's pretty difficult. You have to get the right lighting without anyone standing there and stuff. Like it's actually pretty hard.
Right, and I think like Caleb Deschanel is doing the cinematography. He's been like Oscar nominated for that, so it's like that is also an important part of it. But like I think like just like boiling it down to live action just feels wrong. But so. When that comes out next month, I think we'll be talking about it because at the end of the day, I believe it's an animated movie. It qualifies, and we will be able to discuss more accurately what the differences and similarities are. Right now, this has all been mostly speculation, and I personally can't wait to see what that Lion King was like. But as we begin final thoughts after talking this through. I'm not gonna say like would you recommend The Lion King, but like I guess because I think that's I think that's mostly a yes, and also like if you like animation, I'm pretty sure that like almost all people have like seen it at least once. But I guess is it would you say it's like a must watch? Like if you haven't seen it, like could you live your life without seeing it? I don't know. Sam, how do you feel about like the importance of The Lion King?
I think The Lion King is really important when it comes to like the animated canon of everything. Smack dab in the middle of the Disney Renaissance. One of the highest grossing animated films, definitely. I'm not gonna be like, oh, if you don't watch The Lion King, you're missing out, blah, 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 and like be that kind of person who's like, oh my god, you haven't seen The Lion King? No, I'm like that's not really my style. Like, people grow up without TVs, it's fine. But like if you're so inclined and you're interested in animation and seeing like, the progression of, oh, how did we get from things like Felix the Cat to Lady and the Tramp to Oliver and Company to The Lion King in terms of like, anthropomorphic animals and just in terms of like how the animation industry has changed in the past 100 or so years, I definitely think you should watch it.
Okay. Michelle, any final thoughts on this?
Just in general or about if people should watch it?
Either one.
I mean, it's weird that, I can take off my nostalgia goggles for most of the movie, but it is like it's so deeply ingrained as a part of my childhood. I think there's always going to be a special place in my heart for it. And the fact that I can kind of disassociate from the messages it wants me to get out of it and what I actually see and have issues with, that's part of growing up, I guess.
Yeah.
And you wanting different things out of your media. But I definitely would tell people to watch it. And then we could talk about like, well, what did you think about this thing? And like, what was your perspective? Because there are so many things it still does so well that I think it's just really impressive to see regardless. And that's something to take away too, because like it left a huge impact on the animation industry when it came out, and it's always going to be a classic. And like that's something to take note of too. Like I hope there are more movies that can take away like maybe the soundtrack elements or like the way that they really like drew all these cats that feel like cats, but they emote them in a way that feels very human-like, but it doesn't feel that weird. They still feel like cats. Like stuff like that I think is definitely worth drawing from it. So I think, it's hard to say like if it's a good or bad movie, but I think it's worth the experience of seeing it for sure.
Okay. And not to get too off of a tangent here, but I just want to say, like, speaking of cats, I really can't wait to see footage of the Tom Hooper's Cats musical.
Oh my god,
that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we got caught on that.
Beatriz, any final thoughts on The Lion King here?
Well, one is a fun fact and the other is my actual final thought. I'll say the final thought first and then let you mind blow you guys on the fun fact. But it's a problematic movie. I sometimes I think like, okay, like if I had a child, would I show it to them? Because you don't need the movie to like grow up and, whatever. It's like, it's a movie. But like if I had to pick, like I know I wouldn't show if I had a child, I wouldn't show them Little Mermaid. I'd introduce them to Part of Your World, but I wouldn't show them Little Mermaid because that movie, the messaging is really bad. But then when it comes to this one, I'm like, I don't know yet, because I feel like with this one I have more connection to it. So it's hard because I want them to feel that awe that I felt as a kid with like this whole, with like the circle of life and the fun of all this stuff. So I don't know, maybe I'll just take them to like the musical or something. And fun fact, that final roar that they have in the movie, lions don't roar like that. They took that from a tiger and they mixed it in.
Good.
Well, go to Sam.
Lions are more the roar. They do like more like they kind of do like these like whoa, like these kind of like it's like cut off. It's not as majestic. So they're like, we don't like this sound, so we're gonna get a tiger to do it. And it's
I'm disappointed, Beatriz. I thought you were gonna start making cat noises.
No.
Yeah, where's the Tiger King?
Tiger King.
Tiger, look, like I need a movie, like I need more tigers. I think Disney did them wrong in
The
Jungle Book. Like, even though it's like, yeah, he was right to fear the human. He was right to fear the human. But also, but I mean, they kind of came back being like the buff backup dancers in Zootopia. But it's like, no, I need more tigers in Disney movies. Oh, wait, no, but it was the tiger in Aladdin, which is great too.
Raja
was great. But I need more tigers. Anyway, that's it.
Okay. Sarah, final thoughts?
Like, go see this movie. Like, I don't know if you've never seen this movie, see this movie. Like, I'm not gonna like strap you down to watch it, but like, if you have a chance to watch it, like, watch it. It's a moment in animation history. I think, honestly, this movie was a big step in making animation feel like something that isn't just for kids in America. Like, this was just a movie that everyone saw. It was insane when it came out compared to other animated movies. It was just crazy. And I think that's an important milestone to know about. The animation is gorgeous. The music is great. And the story, despite what we've been talking about, the story is still good. It's just that when you actually sit down and look at it and like think about it, you realize the messaging is pretty bad. But I still think that you can have a movie with poor message that still is a good movie. And I think if you are someone with the ability to look at something critically and the ability to work through it, you can realize, okay, this is a good movie, but let's not do some of the things that happen in this movie in real world. Like, and I think you can watch it and be fine. Like, I'm not saying we should make more movies like it, but I think you should see it.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I think that we are done here for today. We have gotten really deep into The Lion King. And if you've appreciated this discussion, then you can go to overlyanimated.com and find other analytical discussion that we've given on previous animated films and animated shows like this. You can also find us on Discord if you want to chat with us directly about The Lion King or any other animated show, a movie we cover here. You can do that at overlyanimated.com/Discord. If you've listened to the end of this podcast, it's likely that you enjoy our opinions. And if you want us to continue analyzing animation like this with the seriousness it deserves, you can always support us financially via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Nicholas, aka Nickelodeon. And thanks as always to our Patreon executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Beatriz, Hugh, and Michael. Besides what we've talked about today, other stuff that we've covered recently includes shows such as Summer Camp Island, OKKO, Miraculous Ladybug is out there, Fruits Basket, a wide variety of animated shows that we cover. Animated films may pick up a little bit. I know we have Toy Story 4 in the pipeline that will come in theaters soon. So we'll probably talk about that. And other big animated movies we try to talk about. You can also dig in our back catalog for other, we've talked to various Disney movies in the past, Pixar movies, some other pieces of animation history in our OVA After Dark category.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a lot for you to dig into, but thank you guys so much for listening to us up to now. We've had a good time talking, and we hope you've had a good time listening to us. We'll talk to you later. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.